Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I'm Jim Halterman. My Substack is Coffee, TV, and Me, and I'm here with my buddy from LA, Eric Goldman. Hi, Eric.
Hello there. My Substack is Cultured Pop, but ericgoldman.substack.com will get you there.
Exactly. It's funny. We've always been in touch because we've been on a lot of press lines together and press trips together over the
Yes.
years and done a lot of the same things. But my situation, as a lot of people know, changed in the last year, and and yours changed a couple months ago as well. And so that'd be cool to kind of talk about where we're both at with that, because I think both of us, I mean, we all go through stretches where you have like long-term gigs and
Mhm.
then sometimes they go away. And that's, definitely was unexpected for me um moving to Thailand, but and I know the same thing happened with you because I guess the one plus of social media is we can put all this stuff out there right away, like share where we're at, especially since a lot of our followers follow us because of our work.
Yeah.
Um, tell everybody kind of just what your situation was and then how it changed in the last few months.
So I mean, yeah, I've been doing this for about 18 years full time. Dabbled before that, with a long stint at IGN, and then a short stint Marvel.com. But I was like 6 weeks away from hitting 5 years at Fandom as managing editor there. When the dreaded layoffs hit, they seem to be going around. I mean, they always go around, but this
Yeah.
lately more than ever. So yeah, I got laid off early this year, and yeah, finally, and it was it was one of those things where it's like, being in this industry or being in a lot of industries, obviously, but in our industry, I've been around for a lot of layoffs, and I knew I was always lucky because it's not like people getting laid off are all bad at their job. It's just so many
Right.
things factor in. And so I'd been, I'd avoided it a few times, and then it just was like, signed on to that meeting, and there's the HR person, and you're like, oh, um,
Oh no.
it was my turn. So, but it was interesting because it put me back in like a freelance realm, yeah, for the first time in 18 years because, yeah, I'd just been doing this full time since then. So yeah,
Wow.
I'm now, but things have changed a lot in those 18 years, including the invention of Substack and yeah, even the rise of YouTube because YouTube existed, but it's obviously become a much bigger platform. So yeah,
Yeah.
just a lot of different avenues now, along with the freelance grind.
It's crazy. Yeah, I'd been at TV Guide 7 years,
Hmm.
and I knew moving to Thailand, my situation would change. I didn't know it would fully go away because we had
Right.
talked. I talked with my editor, just basically saying like, "Hey, look, I'm doing this. I don't think things have to change that much. Like, obviously, my title would probably change, and we'd have to talk salary stuff. But I was like, I can still do all my other work because I'd already been doing it because I lived here about
Hmm.
6 months." And was already doing it. I wasn't falling behind on anything because since we were a magazine, I didn't have to worry about breaking news, and
Right.
I could just schedule my interviews to be like around this time where it's late in the day for you in LA and it's morning for me. But it was what it was. I mean, they did say it would happen if I was still in LA. So I think it's like you said, it's like layoffs
Yeah.
happen. It's not always about your performance or anything. But then it like my first question was probably like, God, do I still have that freelance hustle in me? Because
Yeah.
it'd been about 7 years for me, but I did it for probably another 6, 7 years before TV Guide, where that's all I knew was freelancing. And I really liked it. I had a lot of outlets and I was good at like pitching stuff. And as you know, like you become known to the publicists and to the shows. And so people come to you. And because what I experienced is people would come to me and I would be able to farm it out to different outlets. Like, oh, this is
Right.
an LGBT story. Let's do this. Let's go here for Futon Critic or TV Fanatic or wherever I was writing. So thankfully, like I just was like, well, the best thing I do is just start reaching out to people, and that's what I did. And been doing a lot of stuff for Variety and Emmy Magazine. I still have to remind myself to keep doing it because even when you get that first flood of assignments, they don't last, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I have to keep, you just have to keep that hustle going all the time. Have
Yeah.
you been experiencing that? Because I see you've been writing for IGN a little bit, right? You've done some reviews and stuff for them.
Yeah, yeah, I have been, and and of course, like you said, there's an ebb and flow, and like right now, I'm reviewing the Acolyte Weekly, and it's funny, things change so much. Like back in my day at IGN, there was so many weekly episode reviews because that was just a bigger thing in general.
Yeah.
Was like the weekly recap, the weekly episode reviews. Also, shows airing weekly was a bigger thing back then.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like the acolyte, and I have like a little bit of a regular gig for a few weeks, but that's not gonna last. And so I'm doing stuff for them regularly, but it's not like a set schedule all the time. And so yeah, you do have to kind of like remember you have to put yourself out there. I mean, I will say like I don't have that much freelance experience, honestly, because when I got hired at
Uh,
IGN, I was doing a little freelance, including for them, but I was still like only even part time thinking this could be my career, you know? And then, yeah, I ended up just, I was very lucky because I had three full time gigs happen in an 18
yeah.
year span. This is my first time really being on that other side of it. It's funny, I am kind of having to take a lesson from freelancers who would pitch to me, you know? Because I did a little bit of pitching back in the day, but not that much. So I've been sort of
Yeah.
like having to hone that as a skill a little more and think about things I can pitch to different outlets depending on, yeah, what is their different niche, but also think about things that like, oh, someone turned this down, but there might be another person that might be interested in that, you know, and kind of
Yeah.
trying to think a little bit broader than I have had to do, you know, in the past.
Yeah. And I know the industry itself, the journalism industry, has taken a hit because it seems like everybody's teams have gotten smaller and smaller and
Yes,
smaller. And I don't know if that's a good thing for freelancers because there's still work needs to be done and there's just
sure.
fewer people to do it. Do you think that's actually opened the door more for freelance just because there's less staffers, or is it just the work has just gotten smaller?
Yes and no, because yes, like you said, it's like these companies now have a far smaller staff in a lot of cases than they used to have, and but they still many times still need things covered, so they might need freelance. But the flip side of that is that a lot more of us lost our job in the past year because of this. And so I think that the now we're like competing with each other, like my friends and colleagues. I know that we're
Yeah,
all like searching at the same time, and there's only so much money to go around. The budgets are restrict and tight. And so it's like that becomes a little bit like I've had some very friendly conversations with a couple outlets, but I haven't gotten anything yet. And I don't think it's because they're like, never use him, but I think that they have
right.
people that understandably they're going to go to more first because they might have used to work there full time or they have a pre-existing
Yeah,
relationship. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because yes, I do think they need the work, they need, you know, what our skill set is for sure, but the fact that a lot more of us now have switched to freelance, whether
yeah.
through choice, but a lot of us not through choice, does make it a little more tricky, you know.
I totally agree. Because I've reached out to pretty much everybody I knew, but then when I
Mhm.
think about where I've gotten work, it's only been a few places.
Yeah,
And maybe that'll come around because I was thinking this past week, I even wrote it on my calendar, like reach out to people again, like people I already contacted with, just
sure.
because I do think like everybody's busy, so they forget. And so it's like, hey, I'm still out here. I can do this for you. It was funny because when I was a TV guide, we covered broadcast quite a bit. And what I was hearing from some editors at some different outlets was they didn't cover a lot of broadcast just because, streaming is where it's at and they've got the hotter shows and everything.
Yep.
So it did help that I had covered, Young Sheldon and
Hmm.
The Good Doctor and some other things. So that helped. But I'm like, those also were shows that were ending. So I'm like, oh shit, well, those shows are over. So now I have to kind of find new shows to cover. But yeah, it's been interesting to navigate, and I'm still doing it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like you said, it's like, yeah, I think, you know, it's not like people are like maliciously like, you know, not contacting you, but I do think, yeah, it's like everyone's busy and it just is human nature and makes total sense that when they're like, oh, we need that written, and they're gonna reach out to a couple people that they use all the time. And I'm not saying they should stop using those people, of course, because I want
yeah,
everyone, you know, to get, you know,
of
get stuff
course.
too. But I do think that sometimes you do maybe have to remind them a little bit, like, hey, you know, I am available, and
Yeah,
both we can all write stuff that maybe we haven't in the past, but also there just might be something that is a good fit for us. So you
yeah,
know, it's that fine line. Of course, you don't want to be the annoying person, because we've been on the other side of those emails too.
of
I don't
course.
want to be contacting someone like every other
Uh-huh.
day, reminder, reminder, but you know, you can check in now and again, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You mentioned things like YouTube, and we'll
Hmm.
talk about our Substack. But have you thought of like how you can utilize those things? Because like YouTube, I mean, I'm not doing a ton of video stuff over here,
Hmm.
but like my husband and I, started a travel page just to
Hmm.
see what we would do with it. We haven't done a lot yet, but which is like let's just utilize and just see what happens because there just seems like there's a lot of maybe opportunities outside of what we're used to doing. Have you seen some of that?
Yeah, so I had a YouTube channel that like basically was just a few random things, like just random videos I'd posted, some like old VHS tapes where I'd found some funny old footage of a Keanu Reeves interview from the Big Picture on MTV promoting My
I
Own
love it.
Private Idaho and some random stuff. But I started doing some movie reviews on YouTube. And again, I have very few followers right now on YouTube, but you do start to see things, right? And for instance, instantly, here's something very obvious if you look at my views on YouTube. What I'm getting the most views on are my horror movie reviews. And
Ah,
I'm a
yeah.
big horror fan. I mean, I'm a big movie
Yep.
fan in general, but I definitely am a big horror fan. And yeah, like that is interesting to me to be like, oh, like like of all the movies reviewed in the spring, Abigail got the most clicks. And yeah, you know, and recently, and I know I was advantageous with the movie Long Legs with Nicolas Cage. Now that one was a
Yeah.
lucky one because I went to a secret screening that we thought was probably Long Legs
Uh,
and it was, and then they told us there was no embargo. So I'm one of the only people to have a review
uh,
up of that, so that's an extra good thing.
that
But
helps.
I'm definitely noticing that the horror stuff is seeming to get more traction. So that is
Okay.
something I am thinking about, obviously, about
I
I don't
love
know if
it.
I'd want to stop doing any other reviews, but I'm like, maybe I might start, maybe I start posting a little bit more about horror movies. Maybe I have not
Yeah.
yet treated YouTube in any way except for movie reviews. I'm like, maybe I'm thinking about doing some like news reactions to like, casting and stuff. Because it's all an
Yeah.
experiment, to kind of see
Sure.
what we put out
That
there.
well, what's your YouTube page so people can go subscribe? I'll
Oh my,
subscribe.
you got it. It's all right. Oh, see, this is how terrible I am. I'm like, what? How do I just people to go? I think if you just search for, I'm looking, I'm literally going to it right now. It's the
Okay.
Eric Goldman, which is most of my socials because
Okay.
Eric Goldman was grabbed already. So the Eric Goldman on YouTube.
Okay.
You'll see a picture of me, and you'll know you're in the right
Is it
place.
I'm totally talking off the top of my head, but is there a thing where you would ever go back to like old horror movies and kind of re-review them? Like even if it's something you haven't watched in 10 years,
No,
or even like
yeah,
going back and watching Buffy or whatever those things and kind of doing a fresh review as today because you're different now. You've seen the market change and maybe not change, but you know what I mean? Is that
yeah. No,
something you
no.
would ever do?
Funny you should mention that. I've thought about that a lot with anniversary stuff and whatnot, and about like
Yeah,
like this is a big year. I'm a huge Freddy Krueger fan, and it's the 40th anniversary of Nightmare on Elm Street and the 30th anniversary of Wes Craven's New Nightmare and stuff like that. And I was like,
amazing.
I might
Yeah.
post some videos about that, and those are movies that I've watched a lot of times. But I also like what you're talking about, which is just sort of things where you haven't seen things in a long time, and you watch them again, and you're like, oh, what is my take on this thing that either I loved or hated, or I had one opinion about back then, and now you watch it and you might have a very different perspective because you were older, the movie's older, and things have
Yeah.
shifted around it.
Yeah. And one
But
thing
by
I
the way,
haven't looked in, oh,
what's
go
your
ahead.
YouTube, by the way?
I
Your travel one.
I think I again like I'm like, oh, what is it? I think it's travel. I think our travel page is travel with Jim and Boyd.
Okay.
Pretty simple. And then I think Jim Halterman TV is my regular YouTube page where I
Okay.
haven't really posted much there, but we've been doing some travel stuff where I've been learning how to edit more on my laptop, just with iMovie and figuring out how to do that and lay in music and lay in some voiceover stuff. Like that's all a little new to me. But it's fun. It's very easy. It's just you have to kind of take the time to learn it. But
100% the
yeah,
iMovie thing, because I was mad at myself that because it really was something where I was like, I need to learn to do basic video editing, especially because I worked alongside so many people who could teach it to me very easily, and
right.
I never did. You're busy, whatever. And so, but I've been self-teaching too. And again, it's pretty, once you get going, you can do it. So I am feeling a little proud of myself. Again, there's nothing fancy in my editing, but even just the fact that if you looked at the videos I was posting like 3 months ago, which were only me talking to the camera, and like I
Yeah,
think literally that was it, or maybe I put in a couple photos, and now I'm like, hey, I'm actually figuring out how to like do a little bit here and post some
yeah,
clips from things, and yeah, and this is all so basic, especially it's like I
yeah,
understand kids today they grow up knowing how to do all this stuff. And I could have learned and I just didn't. So, but
yeah.
yeah, stuff like that, you sort of figure, you can figure it out once you start dabbling.
Yeah, if you look at my Google history, you'll see things like how do you make a title card for YouTube videos? And like little things like that. Cause I didn't know how to do it because you always see people with those title cards where it's like a big, big bold letters in their face doing something like this. And it makes you want to click on it. Like I didn't know how to do that, but now I know. And it's like, okay, it's pretty easy. I just didn't know how to do it.
So here's the thing. I have to let's get real here as you're talking about this. I have I have to overcome my personal biases over the fact that I hate that that's like how you're supposed to do a YouTube video is put your face next to the thing. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I've yet to cross that line in my movie reviews. I'm just using art from the movie, but I'm like, but there's a reason everyone does it. I know it. And
Yeah.
I've joked about it before about the like I'm reviewing a comedy. I'm reviewing a sad movie, and I'm like, am I gonna do that photo
Horror
shoot?
movie.
Yeah,
Ah!
exactly. Or what I don't like. Am I gonna do the photo shoot where I make the expressions? Guess what? I say I'm making fun of it. I probably will do it, guys.
Yeah.
Because but right now I'm like, all right, I just have to get past that.
Oh my god. Yeah, it is goofy. And I was even looking because the first time I did it, I was trying to like freeze frame. Oops, hang on. I have to change my I think my earbuds are about to die. I just heard a
Okay,
little
okay.
beep on them. Let me just change back to my I'm just changing my settings.
No worries, no worries.
There we go. You hear that little bloop 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 bloop, and all of a sudden it's like, oh
Yeah.
shit. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't charge them last night. Uh what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I was going through my video trying to find like a good still of me doing some expression, and I realized a lot of times when I'm talking, I'm just doing this,
Yeah.
and it's not that interesting because I'm just talking. And then I found, I Googled, and somebody had said like, no, like when you're shooting that video, just take a few minutes to make some of those faces, and then you have like a screen grab you can do or whatever. So
Ah,
at the end
see?
of your video, just do a couple where it is like horror movie,
All right. And you're wearing the same shirt and it, yeah.
all that. Yeah, yeah. So pretty funny.
Yeah, yep. There's an art to it
So
all.
I'll keep an eye on your title cards and see how they change. And it would be funny though if you did start putting your face in those goofy expressions and you start seeing your views
I
rise.
know and it's
It would
gonna
happen.
happen, right?
It would happen. It
My
would happen.
stubbornness, I will learn, was hindering me.
Oh my God.
So
One thing I haven't done because I haven't really been posting a lot, but like I know there's a way to like monetize
Mhm.
YouTube. Have you looked into that? Because I know, it's there's a way to do it, and I don't know if it's all about. I don't even know much about it, but is it
Yeah.
something you've looked into?
Yes, I've looked into it and I'm still building up enough subscribers for all that. But yeah, I have kind of keeping an eye out on like bill when you have to hit a certain threshold in subscribers and
Uh,
or page views. And
okay,
so yeah. The like I said, long legs is helping. I've been getting a
yeah,
nice little influx of some subscribers from that review. But I'm not there yet. Hoping to be soon. And again,
okay,
I don't expect suddenly the money to come pouring in. But you start. But it's so funny because I had like I had some friends who I worked coworkers of mine in the past who left and have gone on to like start their own YouTube channels. And I talked to them a little and they gave me some advice and they also warned me that it's always tough and it gets tougher. And I've seen people in real time reacting to like the algorithm and YouTube changing its
yeah,
rules and changing what they push and why. I would have conversations at fandom about why should videos be 10 minutes, should they be 5 minutes, what does it seem to
yeah,
like more, and how it always seems to change. And yeah, so there's always a I and maybe it's foolish of me to say this. I don't want to ignore all that, but at the same time, I am also trying to be like, let's because I'm so early in it all. I'm like, let's just try to post some stuff and see what's working rather than
right.
get so hung up on like, well, they say 7 minutes and 45 seconds is the perfect video, stuff like that. At a certain point, I think you'll drive yourself crazy with that.
Yeah, because once people start talking about algorithms and SEO and all those things, my eyes glass over a little bit, but I also know
Yeah,
they're very important. So I
sure.
was like, I
Yeah.
should listen and do that, but it was something I never really had to do. TV guy, I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm, again, like I Google a lot. Where I'm like, what does this mean, and how do I fix this? And you find that people are talking about all that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
The information
Um,
is floating out there. Yeah.
yeah. So let's move that on to Substack then, which my we both are new to it.
Hmm.
I didn't even know about I don't think I even knew it existed till like maybe last fall. And this is before my job changed or anything, but somebody said to me, It was Frank Spotnitz, who you might know. He was at the X Files for a long time, and
Yeah.
he's a friend of mine. And he was like, Jim, you should do a Substack. It's like the big thing coming, and he's like, you could do some really cool stuff there. And I was like, well, what is it? And I like downloaded the app and I started looking at it, and I was kind of like, well, it's kind of like whatever you put into it. And there's audiences for whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And and I did a lot of, there's a lot of, you probably have seen them, there's a lot of posts on Substack about Substack with people
Yes.
giving advice about, this is how you do this, this is how you do this. Don't expect a windfall of money right off the bat. But um, so I just kind of started dabbling in it. But then when my job changed, I was like, well, this is the time to do it. And at least it's a place where I can write what I want to write, whether it's personal stuff or still do some reviews or TV
Mm-hmm.
coverage, or like I just posted a bunch of TV theme song videos just because I was like, I love looking at that stuff. So maybe
Yep.
somebody, like, I just picked a bunch of different ones. I did a comedy post and a drama post, but it can kind of be whatever I want. I mean, I put up like a short story I wrote one week, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's me kind of finding my way, like, to what works for me, you know. And I can see the traffic and the clicks and all that. But what's your experience been? Because your model's a little different than mine, subscriber wise and all that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so a little bit of a similar background in that I think I was a little aware of it earlier than you, but I wasn't doing it. I a couple years ago I noticed that some of my friends had started newsletters, and even when I had a full-time job at Fandom, it was something I did think about, like, because I saw some of them doing it. Has just, yeah, an avenue maybe to just like post some stuff that like wasn't part of my job purview, but like I was like, I have thoughts on
Yeah.
things and whatnot, and this wouldn't be an appropriate fit for Fandom, but it might be a fun little thing. But I never actually did it. I signed up. I was signed up at Substack, but I never actually had done anything with it. It was funny
Yeah.
because I had like 10 followers. I'm like, who are these people following me who've never gotten anything out of it? I mean, they weren't paying. It was just like, followers there.
Right.
But yeah, when I got laid off, I did, because at that point I was now subscribing to like a handful of people like Alan Sepinwall and some people we know that were doing
Yeah.
them. And so I was like, oh, okay. In that immediate aftermath of like trying to figure things out and reaching out on the freelance side, I was like, okay, let's actually look at this as a thing. So um, it's still, yeah, again, like YouTube, there's a little bit still like, figuring out things as I go along. But I do like, yeah, it's like you said, you can do whatever you want. And I understand like that there's the pros and cons to that, of course, are like, are you going to get a great subscriber base if it's like a little bit of a hodgepodge? And
Yeah.
it depends. I mean, on one hand, it's like, yes, I have like people who like follow me on Twitter and whatnot, have just like have followed me for a long time, and they know the stuff I like, and like, they might like similar stuff. So I think that they might, enjoy that. Sometimes I think you might get someone who's like, for me, for instance, who's like, I like to write about horror movies, but I also like to write about theme parks, and I like to write, it's like, well, they don't always cross over. And so people might be like, hey, I thought you were going to only write about horror stuff. What's this Disneyland stuff? I don't care about that. Again, I know that there's other people who are like, great. So it is, you kind of have to like keep that in your mind. And I'm, while I'm looking to build my paid subscriber base, of course, and see if it is viable to like make some money on this for my writing. But I do mix in some free posts. Like I did a post yesterday that was just about me reacting to the announcements for Universal's Epic. This is a direct blend of theme park and horror, because Universal's gonna have a Universal Monsters section at their new theme park next year, Epic
Oh,
Universe, and they announced all the
nice.
details. I did a post. It was just me kind of going through what they announced and reacting to it. That I made that a free post. It's just like, hey, this is
Right.
like a quick. This was not like a hugely research thing. This is a very off the cuff thing. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you kind of mix it up there, and I've done a handful of interviews on there as well, of people that I just kind of reached out to, and or in some cases reach out to publicists and be like, hey, can I talk to some people here? And again, you have to switch from having like a huge brand behind you, where it's like, hey, this is, I'm part of Fandom, I'm part of
Right.
IGN. It's not the same when you're like, hey, this is for my Substack. And I don't have any illusions that I'm like gonna get like the Tom Cruise interview for my Substack.
Right.
But that's okay, because I like interviewing people, I like posting stuff, and I have, we've built up relationships, and so you kind of reach out and see. And sometimes I make swings that probably won't pay off, but I'm just like, let's see if for this, this
Yeah.
smaller movie, I say, hey, can I talk to this actor or director just for myself? And see if they say yes or not, and sometimes they
Yeah.
do.
I had that too because the new season of Top Chef was starting.
Mhm.
It just ended this last week, but I'm a big Top Chef fan, and I
Yeah.
talked to Kristen Kish, who took over hosting, but she's a past winner. And I've covered the show a lot over the years, and I did the same thing. I just reached out, I was like, they may say no, but I said, hey, I just want to interview Kristen for my Substack about the new season, and they were like, yeah, we'll set it up, and it worked out, and I was kind of surprised because I was like, this is just for me, and but I posted it. It did decent, and
Yeah.
why not? So it's
Same here with for me it was when the last season of Chucky was ending a couple months ago. Again, I've covered the show extensively. I've interviewed Don Mancini, the creator, many times.
yeah,
And I'd done like interviews for the beginning of the other seasons, but again, that was for fandom. But I reached out to them because they've dealt with me a lot. They're for those watching that might not know, like there's so many tiers to things because there's like the studio publicist, but then there's the personal PR for the person, and then getting to there's a lot of stages before it like might get to the person. Like a person might be cool with talking to you, but it'll never even get to them because that's get through
right,
things. But with Don, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he'll say yes if he knows I'm asking, just because
yeah,
it's like we've talked a million times and whatnot. And again, I have no idea how many steps it had to get through, but they said sure. And yeah, I interviewed him for my Substack with like my kind of end of the season postmort, like I've
yeah.
done in the past. So that was cool.
Yeah, I did the same thing with when Warrior went to Netflix,
Yeah.
and I was a big fan of Warrior, and they were doing a junket, and one of the actors reached out to me directly because he knew I covered the show and I liked the show, and they were just doing like a little press junket on their own because Netflix wasn't doing anything,
Right.
so the actors got together. And they were like, "Would you want to be a part of this?" And I pitched it a couple places and didn't get any traction. So I just thought, as long as you guys are okay, then I'm just going to post it on my Substack. So I did some video interviews like this, and
Yeah.
I edited them up, posted them, and why not? It felt good to still do that kind of stuff because I do like that.
Hmm.
Uh, since we both have done it for a long time, so I was like, I'm glad I can still do that kind of stuff because that keeps me interested in just promoting shows and talent and that. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, and
but
being speaking up for shows like because a big I think a gratifying part of this job obviously is when you
yeah,
like you literally you love something and you want to like pass on a message about that and tell people, hey, this is a really cool thing you should be watching.
yeah,
So yeah, I was gonna ask you about the Warrior thing by the way because I noticed that. So
yeah.
that's great how that worked out.
Yeah, it worked out great. And timing wise is always a good thing for me because if I can get them, because sometimes I do have to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning to do an interview. I just
Right.
have to because
Remind anyone who might be watching this where you are so they
I'm in Bangkok.
yeah,
So
yes.
yeah, so when I still was with TV Guide, I had to do a phoner with Carol Burnett for Palm Royale,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to argue about a time with Carol Burnett. Like, oh well, she can do noon LA time. Like, oh, that's like 3 o'clock in the morning my time, but I'm not
Ah,
going to say no to that.
yeah.
So I just set my alarm for like 15, and thankfully it was a phoner, it wasn't a Zoom, so I didn't have to worry about my hair or anything. But I did it, and I'm like, hey,
You win, sir, because I've done the 6 a.m. but 3 a.m. I've not done.
yeah, I didn't do it a lot till I got over here. Now it happens every once in a while, but I'm
Mhm.
an early riser, but not that early. So, but it was worth it. It was Carol Burnett. She was wonderful.
Hell
It
yeah.
was great to talk to her. So yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and remind people what's your Substack? Is it the Eric Goldman or?
And and for Substack, just yeah, go to Eric know the on that one. ericgoldman.substack.com. My fellow Eric Goldmans didn't beat me to that one. So
Oh,
I've called it cultured pop, but yeah, you'll just find it if you go to my name,
yeah, I
ericgoldman.substack.com.
think that's what my URL is actually jimhalterman.substack.com,
Mm-hmm.
but my page is called Coffee TV and Me because I kind of cover a little of everything.
Yep, yep.
Um,
No, I think that's a great. I mean, that's why I went for the cultured pop too, because I'm just like, yeah,
yeah,
I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself by having be like, this is the page for this and this only.
exactly. And real quick before we hang up, how often are you posting? Because that was one thing I was trying to navigate for myself because you also are trying to, you're doing paid jobs,
Yeah.
but I was doing like every Wednesday, and even then it became problematic because sometimes on a Tuesday or Wednesday I was busy and I didn't have time to prep the post. And so now we switched to just kind of like, hey, I promise I'll post at least once a week, sometimes more, sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's worked out better for me. And so, but how did you navigate that?
Pretty much the same, right? Because I do believe it's even somewhere on my page that I promised once a week at least, and I think I said once a week, but I'd really liked it to be at least twice. But yeah, it is that funny thing of the you get some freelance gigs and then suddenly it's like, oh man, I really want to do something for my Substack, but I just don't have time for the next 2 days. So I'd love to get to a place where I was a little more consistent. I've been pretty good about the at least once a week thing, but I know there was at least once or twice where I didn't get within 7 days because,
Yeah.
again, like things hit. So I've been trying really hard to make sure, because it again, there's back and forth. Like last week on Substack, I posted like 4 or 5 things. It just happened to be a week where I'd seen a bunch of stuff. There was a bunch of big review. Like it was like The Boys. It was premiering in House of Dragon. And I'd seen the
Okay.
screeners. And I was like, I should do
Yeah.
reviews of these. And if I'm not doing them for a
Yeah.
freelance outlet, I'll just do them on the Substack. So I kind of had things like rapid succession. But then it's like suddenly I didn't have things for a few days because I was busy with other
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, very similar to you. I'm really trying to the at least once a week thing. Because I've talked to people who say, hey, it's great to have it like, every Thursday. I've talked to some people who say they try to send it at the same time every week.
Yeah.
But because I would like to have more than once a week, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of have a back and forth about that, because you have to keep in your mind, like at a certain point, you don't want to feel like you're like spamming someone in their email because, hey, I'm thankful that you're subscribing to me.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want them to feel like, hey, I subscribed to you and you're barely writing. So it's kind of finding that middle ground.
I've thought about that too. Even when I do like a post where it's just YouTube clips of TV theme songs, and I
Yeah.
was like, somebody say like, "Hey, dude, you kind of phoned it in this week."
Right.
It's like, why did I say that? It,
Hey,
it
hey,
actually
you had
it
to
actually
search for
took a
that.
lot of time to go through all those YouTube videos and find the best quality
Oh,
and the best ones. And if it's a long running show, which season did I want to post? Because some shows they change every season. I'm like, no, I need season 3 of Buffy or whatever I posted.
God,
That took
what was
time.
it the other day? I totally know what you're talking about, because I was trying to find. This would be such a better story if I could remember the example. But I had a similar thing. It was like I was trying to find like the opening credits of something, but I kept finding really crappy versions. And I'm like, well, someone has a bet, And you check like 6 different uh posts until you find like this one. Look, this is a good quality
Yeah,
version of that. You know what? It
yeah.
was an old music video, because I'm still forgetting what song it was, but it was like an old
Oh
music video
yeah.
where I was like, someone has a good version of this. Just
Wow.
as a dig.
Well, good luck with everything you're doing, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad we got to chat. I think I even got some pointers and things I can do differently and or just start putting into my work. So,
No, no, thank you as well. And likewise, I mean, yeah, I'll just say before we go also, like, you did that post that was kind of giving some thoughts and pointers of early on about something.
yes.
And I've really taken a lot of that to heart. Like, for instance, like it's so true, when you can, doing face to face, which of course for you is an extra hurdle because you're not around a
Yeah.
lot. But for instance, I got laid off right before TCA, the Television Critics Association press tour this
Yeah.
year. And I really wanted to still go. And then there was just a bunch of stuff happening, and I only got there once. And I really regretted that, because, as you pointed out, that's one of many times where you get a lot of FaceTime with people, and it can be very invaluable. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, I was at a press event last week, a screening of something, and a PR person like introduced me to someone who heads a site, because he's like, oh, you would be great to write for them, and was
Uh-huh.
like kind of like help me, really kind of selling me to this person. So moments like that can be really invaluable. And so, yeah, I think you've had a lot of great thoughts and suggestions and things that I've been trying to follow through on as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard from a lot of people about that just because I think people forget kind of and they're just my do's and don'ts. I mean, they're going to be different for everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I heard a lot of people reach out to me and just said, "Hey, thanks. I kind of needed reminders of some of that stuff."
100%, 100%.
Yeah, and
Hopefully, I'll be seeing you at Summer TCA. Will I be seeing you there?
I won't be there at summer TCA, but
Okay,
I'm
okay,
planning to go to winter because I feel
okay.
like I was just there because
Oh, because they were
winter this
it was
past
it
winter
happened later than usual this year
it was
because of the
later and I
strikes. Yeah.
yeah and I was like God I was just there and thankfully like I've had some work but I was already thinking like yeah I should go in January
Mm-hmm.
again and just for the same reason just to really just get my face out there still and talk to people and work the room
Yeah,
as
you
the
do
actor
it.
used
Do
to
it.
say.
We've watched
Yeah.
actors do it. We can do it too.
Oh God, we can do it. All right, Eric. Good to talk to you, man. And we'll keep in touch and good luck with everything.
Thanks. You as well. Great talking to you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Take care.
Okay.